Yo, welcome to ConverStayShuns. I am Devin Boyd, aka Lyrical Instrumentalist, and I will be your host and guest today. I wasn't able to. I've been real busy this past couple weeks, really, but definitely this past weeks I wasn't really able to book a guest like I normally would have on the show. And I don't like trying to contact and reach out to people last minute. I don't like last minuting people because I don't like them doing that to me either. So I didn't want to try to hit nobody up last minute and, try to brief them on what we're trying to do on this episode and all that kind of stuff. Because again, I don't like doing it. But at the same time, I think sometimes it's good just for people to hear me. Because some people don't really get to get a chance to really hear who I am, because I'm always doing an interaction with people. So this can be good for me. I told you guys on several episodes ago, I used to always really get nervous doing this podcast anyway. So this is kind of like therapy for me, being able to just really sit here and kind of voice my thoughts, because I have a lot of thoughts in my head, but be able just to voice my own thoughts and my own opinions with things, just to kind of get other people's take on them, to stimulate other people's minds with it as well. But at the same time, I'm not just up here going to be venting without some kind of solution or possible like resolution with it all, because to me, when people just vent without trying to have a resolution, you're just kind of complaining, which to me there's nothing really wrong with complaining, but I guess there's a time and a place for it. But to me, if you're going to complain, it's real good to try to have some kind of resolution about your complaint. That's the best way to actually get it resolved. Other than that, you're just saying some words for no reason. But anyways, like so on this particular episode, one thing I want to kind of do is really challenge people, right? We all need to get educate ourselves on just different things around the world, different things in your neighborhood, different things in your own home, in your own community, in your own life. Need just to self-educate yourself, but to educate yourself on about yourself. Do some your own self-healing and your self-evaluation, because that can help you grow as well. But one thing I want to do is kind of challenge the intellects, question some intellects, and different things that we commonly say or do or regurgitate every day, but sometimes I don't think we take the time to actually have thought about some of the things we actually say, like what the origins of what we're saying. And kind of what I mean by that is we'll say things like and whatnot, and so to speak. It's another one people commonly use, but we do this, so to speak. I get rid of all these different things and whatnot. People will use those kinds of phrases, but if you really kind of sit and think about what you're actually saying, it doesn't really make any sense. Kinda, you know what I mean? Like I understand what the meaning of it is, and over time, things change with their meanings, but sometimes I feel like let's challenge that, right? Especially if somebody is wanting to speak over your head and use certain phrases like so to speak, because to me it really doesn't make any sense, but I just know how to use it, right? Because you say so to speak, like what does that actually mean? For one, to speak makes sense. So I speak. So to speak about a certain issue, we must do this and that. if that's what that means. If so, then it's like you go to school and you learn how to talk in complete sentences, but when you get older, it's okay not to complete your sentences, because you'll never what? In what nots? In what nots? You mean like what not to do? Because that's what that means. But you're saying, yeah, we're going to get rid of, different things and whatnot. And what not? And what not to do, so to speak? Because I'll never. But anyways, I'm just saying, yeah, let's try to challenge some different things. And I mentioned like talking over people's head. I made a post on Instagram and Facebook a while ago, and I said, when you talk over people's heads, you sound the smartest, the dumbest person in the room. And basically what I mean by that is, you got people who claim to be so smart, so when they're in a room full of people, they feel obligated to try to show how quote unquote smart they are. So they use, like I said, they'll make sure that people understand how big their vocabulary is, understand people how much knowledge they have on a particular subject, and then they speak in the terms of that particular subject, right? I know at my job we talk about that all the time. We have like certain internal words that we use, and then there's certain things that when you speak to somebody externally, how you'll phrase that kind of thing. So I feel like sometimes those intellects, they kind of stay in that internal zone, right? When they want to describe certain things. It's almost like the same reason why you have, which I'm going to comment on this as well, well, why you have scientific words versus just the standard word. Like you have, with the genus, species, whatever words, and then you just have the word dog. So you have like the scientific way. I don't think it's canine. I think it's canine snuffleupagus or something or whatever. But then you just be like, oh, a dog. Yeah, dog. Yeah, just say dog. Like you don't have to boast your vocabulary, your vocabularic terminology to people, because again, like I said, no one understands you, but yet the masses most people will see you because you present yourself in a certain way, you have this certain status and this certain you hold a certain position, so when you speak over people's heads, people just automatically assume that you're smart. But to me, if you can't really appeal to the people, you sound like the dumb guy in the corner that no one understands either. Because you might be like, oh, he's speaking gibberish. I'm like, well, the difference between that guy, I don't understand the gibberish that he's saying, but maybe someone else does. And I was like, the guy on, talking over my head, I just hear words coming out of his mouth, but I don't understand what those words either. So both people are producing sounds out of their mandibles meaning their mouth or jaw. But yeah, both people are producing sounds out of their mouths, and I don't understand either. It's almost like when you hear somebody speaking in a foreign language, they might be a very intelligent person, but they're not speaking the same language as you. So to me, I can't say that, oh yeah, that person's smart. No, I have no idea. They can be rambling on like some of the mumble rappers and not really saying anything. But because I don't understand their language that they're speaking, whether that's English and they're speaking in a certain dialect, or they're speaking a non-English language, but the fact that if I don't understand what they're saying, then to me it's still like a foreign language, as we often say and refer to it when people use big vocabularic words. And that's another thing. Just because they have a big vocabulary, again, doesn't make you smart. It just means that you have a good memory. It means that you rememorized. It means that you rememorized a certain amount of words, and you know how to use that particular word properly. That's all that means. Doesn't make you smart. Doesn't make you not smart. So I'm not trying to downplay anybody that took the time to learn, expand their vocabulary, because that is great. But I'm just saying, like, again, it goes back to what I said. Speaking over people's head doesn't make you smart. Because if the people don't understand what you're saying, then it really doesn't even matter. You're actually speaking to yourself at that point, which again, it's like the crazy guy in the corner who's also talking to himself. I'm saying, just think about that. Yeah. Especially for those people who, yeah, anyway, so, but yeah, just think about that. Like, again, speaking over people's head, you sound the smartest and dumbest person in the room, because, again, no one understands either of you. And that's just kind of that. I keep saying stuff like vocabulary, and what did I just say a few minutes ago? Rememberizing. Because of the fact that words are nothing but symbols of communication, right? So whether you're looking at hieroglyphics, whether you're looking at the words and letters on a keyboard, whether you're looking at a script from a different language, whether you're looking at or touching Braille or looking at it or whatever, or zeros and ones, a computer language. Again, words are nothing but symbols of communication. So basically, if I said rememberize, no, it wasn't the proper word to use, or it may not be quote unquote a word at all, which I'll come back to that. But you understood what I said, right? You knew what I meant. No, it wasn't, the proper way, quote unquote, to deliver whatever I said, but you understood it. So again, it kind of goes back to where people are again trying to boast their intelligence, but you understood what I said. When it comes down to it, I wanted you to understand that I want you to understood that I was able to retain something in my memory. So if I said rememberize, you can laugh and snicker, but you understood it. So, and the fact that if you think about it, if you like, that dude, he's stupid, he said rememberized. But if you understood it, does that make you stupid? Because that means you speak stupid language? Or you're just saying that you were smart enough to decode what I'm saying? And if that is the case, then again, I got my point across. We spoke the same language when it came down to it. But and I said, and I said, even if rememberize isn't a word, in my theory, if you can see it, say it, spell it, it's a word. And to me, that is what that is. Because I had a debate with somebody that was basically saying that he had to have some kind of qualifications to create words in order for them to be in a dictionary or to be kind of on a global scale or whatever, to be in some official documentation. But the fact of the matter is, who agreed upon that, right? Who said that that's how words get created? Because the thing is, a scientist creates words all the time. And I take myself as a scientist, so I can create words. But no, for real, but man created words. Man meaning non-gender specific, but for those who that might offend, man and woman, human beings created words, right? I am a part of the human being race, so I do have that right to create words. And if you can see the word, then that means you know that, okay, there's a combination of letters right there. So that, that's a start. And then if you can say that word, whatever that is, first let me back up. If you can see the word, and if you can spell that word, meaning that you see it, and if you can pronounce it, you can say it, then what makes that not a word? Now, if I put www, and I just say woo, maybe you can say that's not a word, maybe. But I would differ with that. Maybe that is the word. Maybe that's a onomatopoeia or something. Look that up. I'm not even going to explain what that is. Onomatopoeia. We need to start challenging ourselves. Educate yourself. That basically means it means like the word is what the is basically like when people say a dog barks, bark is an onomatopoeia, because the word is describing what the sound is or whatever, something like that. But anyways, yeah, if you can see it, say it, spell it, it's a word. So I challenge people to go ahead, walk around places and make up words. Make that shit up. Just make it up. Don't even, and then just have a definition with it, right? And then say it with so much conviction and confidence that people will start going to research that word. And they'll go and research that word, and then they'll never find it. But what you can even do is make that word be a thing, right? Because people will go research it. Make it be a definition. Wikipedia, from my understanding, you can put stuff out there and it doesn't have to be official anyways. So make your Wikipedia page of that word you made up. Why not? Man created words. You are a part of the human race. If you can hear this and comprehend this, then yeah, make up a word. See it, say it, spell it. You're hearing it from me. I'm a poet. Poets, we create words. We have that right too. And on a side note, my name is Devin, right? I looked it up in some kind of Celtic book. Celtic, I think it was. And Devin actually means poet. So it's really in my genes and name that it's okay for me to make up words. But anyways, yeah, so like I challenge people to go ahead and do that and just make up words randomly. Just have a definition with it, be able to see it, say it, and spell it, and just roll with that. Go around and speak intelligent around people and with your made up words. Why not? Again, scientists do it. What gives them the right to do it? They're classifying different things, genus, species, this and that, whatever. They're classifying different things with their words. But scientists don't have a literary degree, at least not most of them. So if anything, a linguist or a language teacher should be the only ones, quote unquote, to be able to make up words based off of, qualifications or whatever. But again, just roll with it, make up a word and do your own thing. And it's funny because like when I was arguing or had to debate with somebody about words and stuff like that, in that same conversation they started to try to throw out statistics, which is very interesting to me, because a lot of people like to throw out wow, if I could say the word. Maybe that's not a good symbol of communication. But yeah, a lot of people like to throw out statistics real loosely and make them be as fact, right? And what I mean by that is like I think anybody can make up a statistic, because the thing is, most statistics that you hear, some of them actually contradict to each other, right? I've heard like there's been several number one killers. Some numbers where, the average person, one out of so-and-so people have this, but it's like, dang, okay, well, so based off of that statistic, that same individual also has these combination of things too, based off the statistic that people be throwing out. So I'm just saying, like, I think we need to start challenging those as well, especially when people are actually throwing out statistics at you. When they're throwing statistics at you to try to prove their point, fact check them, right? Because when you were in school, for one, if that person's so intelligent, right? Because right now they're only throwing out the statistics so they can try to one-up you in the debate or whatever that you're having. So when you were in school, we always had to do works cited pages or bibliographies, or had to show your work, in math. So make them people show the bibliography, the works cited, to show their work. I want to see the documentation that proves that statistic. I want to see the organization, the group of people who were part of that. I want to see the subjects for that statistic. I want to see, the responses from this, the subjects. Were those subjects, were some of those subjects skeptics? A part of the, I just want to know every part of it, all the facets of that statistic, and then you can prove me wrong with it, right? Because I'll debate with people about things I actually agree with them on, but Just the fact that they're just throwing out random things and regurgitating things that they heard other people say doesn't make it fact. So again, I challenge people to challenge statistics. And for you people who frequently use statistics, read and research. Research that. Because one might help you. You might actually learn some additional information about that statistic so you can have more concrete evidence. Because to me, just throwing out some numbers doesn't really mean anything. And especially nowadays, especially in court cases, you hear experts. Everybody's an expert now. Experts say this, and that. It's like, wow. Sometimes you have to question that. Like, how'd you become an expert on that particular subject matter? Like an expert. I mean, you got to think about what that word is. Expert means like you're up there, right? So certain subjects is like, I can't think of an example right now, but I'm like, how are you an expert on that? And like, did you get a degree in that? If so, how'd you get a degree to get that? Did you get a certification? What makes somebody an expert in certain matters? Think about that. But again, let's not regurgitate what we just read or what we just heard somebody else say. Let's read and research. I challenge people to do that. Let's just not just read a statistic or just listen to what someone else said. Let's listen and research. Let's read and research. Let's listen, read, and research. But let's do that. Let's do that extra legwork to make sure that we understand the facts that we know, or the facts that we feel like we're going to have to use to defend, or the facts that we're going to regurgitate. I'm using the word regurgitate because that's what I think a lot of us do, and I'm guilty of it too at times, most of the time not. But we will regurgitate something that someone else said, right? But at the same time, we don't have the evidence that backs it up. So that's why I think go look into that. Find that evidence that provides that statistic. Because the thing is, what people don't realize about statistics too, they're not actually concrete facts anyways. They're basically studies that are done in certain amount of groups. This is how it's supposed to be done from when I was in school. It's what they taught me. If I'm wrong, well, whatever. I learned it from your schools. But from my understanding, basically you take different groups, right, fields of study. So you'll isolate a certain group and you'll do multiple studies, and then you'll base your numbers off of those multiple studies. And then you form your numbers and your statistics and your research or whatever. And that's how you conclude that one out of so-and-so people do whatever, blah, 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 whatever. And, in those percentages and all that. That's from my understanding how it's supposed to be done. Now, I feel like more so than not, statistics that are actually listed, especially on the internet, anybody can type anything. And again, you're not going to fact check them. So I feel like if somebody is skilled in a particular area or known as the quote unquote expert in an area, for instance, I'm an audio engineer and producer, so I can easily throw out some statistics and say something like, the average audio engineer and the average producer actually kind of slightly goes deaf in their left ear, just because the algorithms in most headphones try to compensate for the rarefaction of the frequencies that sometimes combat each other, because some of the lower frequencies travel further. So when they do increase the bass flow from both sides of the frequency, and they try to counterbalance your left and your right brain, so in the end they wind up overcompensating in the left ear cuff, which causes people, when they're trying to mix in their headphones, to slightly go deaf in their left ear, which results in sometimes easier listening fatigue as they're trying to mix some dope records, right? And it actually shows, I think it's like 3 out of 7 engineers experience this, but out of that percent, about 13.5% of those people will actually go get it checked on. You heard all that? Good. Yeah. So that's the statistic I'm telling you right there. That is fact. Of course it's fact. Like I said, I'm an audio engineer. I'm a certified audio engineer. and I'm an expert, so of course that's all fact. I mean, if you don't believe me, go ask some other audio engineers, and they'll tell you the same thing I'm going to say. So there's no point wasting your time going and do all that. But anyways, yeah, please, like I said, find out the background and the history behind statistics. To me, if you feel like that's just too much work, you don't feel like doing all that, then don't regurgitate no statistics. Don't even use that as part of your argument. Because again, it's not really absolute fact anyways. They're just numbers. They're generalized numbers in a sense to try to build a generalization of a particular whatever the case is. So because like I said, I know there's a bunch of number one killers, there's a bunch of number one leading causes, and 1 out of 72 people, and then you have another statistic that comes back. It's like, okay, yeah. And you see that on commercials all the time. And again, who's going to fact check them? Especially if they're like I said, experts in medical professions. They don't have a lot of checks and balances in there to really all the way around, fact check stuff. So let's just be real with it. And while people are trying to throw statistics at you, I always just recommend challenging them, but don't let people intimidate you, right? Because there's always something that person doesn't know that you do know. And I actually hate the phrase now, book smart versus street smart. I think we actually, as a people, need to stop with that phrase, with that comparison. Because it seems like, for one, book smart is referring to basically having a better education than a person who's street smart. But then sometimes people refer to street smart as common sense, which I don't think we need to integrate all that together. Either smart or not, kind of. But like, here's the thing. Here's a kind of way to deboggle your mind. So book smart basically means you have a good education. You learn books well. When you read stuff, you retain that information and all of that. But the education system isn't the greatest right now. It isn't as great as it could be. I'm not saying this is a poor system, but it's not as great as it could be. And then you have a lot of people writing books that may not actually be factual. So especially when I remember being in school, you learned that Christopher Columbus discovered the earth, or discovered the world isn't flat or whatever, and he discovered America, right? So I'm book smart, right, at that point. But then later, as you continue your education, all the different things that you learned from the previous year just kind of keeps getting washed out, and it's like, well, Christopher Columbus didn't, this person did. And then after a while, it's like, Christopher Columbus wasn't really shit. And I forgive my French. I never heard a French person say that. Anyway, but yeah, it's like you find out that Christopher Columbus ain't nothing. So it's like, now we should start doing, again, reading and research. Because what you learned before isn't absolute at that point, and there's a lot of contradicting evidence. So, yeah, that's book smart versus street smart. But then, if street smart is supposed to be more kind of common sense, why would you want to just be book smart when you need common sense to actually survive in the world? So who came up with that? It's basically, I think whoever came up with that was also trying to create a separate, basically trying to categorize, a demographic of people at the time. So again, I think that's something we need to do away with and stop saying that, because essentially it doesn't make any sense. Because again, somebody can remember everything that they read in the book or whatever, but if they don't know how to recall that information at the proper time, it doesn't really matter as much, because at that point you just have knowledge, but you don't know how to recall it. Because I know sometimes I think, like, I used to read the dictionary, right? I know it's weird, whatever. But I'm not gonna pretend like when I read, all the A's in the particular dictionary, like I just remembered every single word. but there'll be times where somebody may say a word, or I might see it and I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's like it triggered something, but it's not like I just had all that stored in my head and like I could just recall all the words that I read in a dictionary. That's not the case. Yet my brain probably did retain it, because for the most part, unless you have like some different brain disorders and things like that, or brain issues, forgive me if I'm not saying proper terms, but for the most part, your brain retains everything it sees. Whether you can recall specifically or not, it retains everything that you saw, regardless. Whether you, like I said again, whether you can consciously remember it or not, it does retain everything. But yeah, so again, like, let's do away with the book smart and the street smarts. And again, like I said, don't let anybody intimidate you with their vocabulary or their statistics and all that, because I feel like sometimes it's a defense mechanism for people to either get loud in a debate, so they can if you get loud, people around sometimes flock to that and believe that, oh, this person is right because they're loud. Or somebody starts speaking kind of fast, they also sometimes think like, oh, this person, it's almost like when people speak loud or fast, they seem like they can be possibly on a higher level as far as in the intelligence. But the thing is, again, sometimes I feel like those are defense mechanisms. Some people speak fast when they're nervous, but people don't think of it like that. Some people speak loud when they feel like they're backed into a corner, but people don't think about that. They just look at it like, oh, well, he's more confident. Loud doesn't mean confident. Loud just means that, right? So let's, again, not confuse, different things in that manner. But again, like I said, challenge those people who get loud with you. You don't have to get loud back, but I feel like some people like that. Like, I listen to different like podcasts and like talk radio and stuff, and you have certain hosts who have like a good, strong, solid demeanor, and I feel like some of their guests don't want to challenge them, right? Just because of that person's status and where their position and all that. And I feel like people do that with doctors and like certain politicians and certain figures who might hold a certain kind of status, and don't want to challenge them just because of the status that they are. Because I hear people often say like, well, I don't know, well, he's the expert. Well, no, don't give that person that title until you challenge and figure out how much of an expert they are. Just because somebody's a doctor doesn't mean they know everything, for one. Two, that doctor might have just got through to where they at. Doesn't mean every doctor is a good doctor. I know we all heard of bad doctors. And that's just an example, but basically just challenge people, because if you don't challenge them, you can't grow. And sometimes by challenging them helps that person to grow, helps that person actually learn something new. So like, again, let's start challenging people, because every teacher is a student and vice versa. For instance, like a teacher can learn about a whole new like demographic of student, maybe, right? Or a new way to teach, because the student doesn't learn the way everybody else's does. Or maybe like after talking to this particular student who's had this behavioral problem, where maybe a lot of the children in the class had that same behavioral problems, but they spoke to this one student because maybe they were just doing it more than others, and they were able to maybe find out that maybe the kid has a learning disorder, and then they conclude that, man, there's a lot of students in this class that have the same learning disorder. Or maybe that student has some problems at home that you just found out by speaking to this student, and now it triggers in your head that, you being the teacher, but triggers in their head that, okay, these are the same signs that these other students have. Let me pick these kids' brain to see, oh man, yeah, these other students or kids or whatever are having the same issues in their house too. But again, so I'm just basically kind of went off on a tangent, but that's how a teacher can still be a student, or be educated just as much as a student is as well. Wow, I kind of like I say went off on a tangent. But anyways, yeah, like I think I say we need to start reading For one, like I said, fact checking those people. Like, don't get intimidated because they're using the big vocabulary and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't really mean anything. I said challenge that. Even if you don't know the word, make them people break it down to you, right? If somebody's trying to use all these big old words at you, stop them and make them explain that word to you. Because to me, it makes you the smarter person, because now I'm like, yo, I don't know that word. I need you to explain it to me. For one, if they can't, then that kind of shows where they're at, where what they're doing. Or if they feel like they can't take the time to explain it to you, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, to me, that makes you start being in a position of power, because it's like you're challenging that person. No, you're supposed to be so smart. You can easily come down to quote unquote my level to educate me with what you're saying. Now, if you can't figure out a way to clearly explain that, then that, you know, you can't appeal to everybody. You need to learn how to appeal to your audiences on a massive scale if you really want your message to actually get out to the distance that you need to get out to. But like I said, we really need to read and research more, because I know a lot of people, a lot of intellects out there can regurgitate a lot of stuff that they read in somebody else's book based off somebody else's experience. We need to actually start trying to, for one, just travel more, so you can get your own experiences. But with that travel, again, do your own research, read and research. Because again, like I said, I'm not going to name anybody specifically or any book specifically. At least I'm trying not to, but there's like several books out there. People will tell me to, read this person's book, read this book, read about this person, read from this person. She says this in her book. He says this in her book. Honestly, I'm not a big reader. I know how to read, but I don't really like to read. And I'm going to admit it. I don't like to read. I like to be educated and learn, but I'm honestly not about to read like a whole book of something, because for the most part, because of how I am, once I pretty much figure out the gist of what this book is about, then that's enough for me, right? I don't need to, for example, I've read parts of the Alchemist. A lot of people like, you have to read that book. I've read parts of it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I get the concept of the book. Now, I don't need to read. Me personally, I'm not knocking anybody who does or whatever, but me personally, I don't need to read the rest of the book, because I already understood the concept. I understood what the practice is. I understood the power of the book, right? So I don't need to necessarily read the whole thing, because now that it already opened my eyes to the point of the book. So since my eyes are already open to that, I'm good, right? I feel like that with different books. I was about to go on another tangent, but yeah, you know what books I'm talking about, people. They're good books. But some of those books as well, like once you get the purpose of the book, sometimes you don't have to read the entire thing because you already understood, right? So that's, but, and since I mentioned The Alchemist, I know a lot of people who say to read it, but I don't hear a lot of people all the time either recite things from it or share knowledge they gained from it. People will say like a small little piece and then they'll tell you to go read it, which maybe that's the point. But some of you that have read The Alchemist, how much did you like it? How much did you retain from it? How much did you actually understand from it? Because that's another thing. People will tell you to read a book and you'll say you read it, and you might not have, you might have, but some people read it but really don't understand the book, but then you only know certain parts, and maybe those certain parts that you even know is because you heard other people say it. Once again, you're regurgitating, but you'll recite it and be like, yeah, I read that book, and so said this and that. But it's like, did you really understand what you even read? I know in school, reading and comprehension was a big thing, and I'm not questioning anybody's reading comprehension skills, because I know certain books, again, they speak over people's heads on the way they word things, and some things are too wordy and lengthy, where, I lose attention. Now, I don't have, an attention problem, but if you're trying to explain something to me and you're not getting to your point fast enough, then I'm gonna start kind of drifting off a little bit with certain things. Now, I don't do that frequently, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're using a lot of big words, it's like you got too much going on, and you're losing me, right? So that's why I don't like to talk over people's heads. Now, I can get with you with some intelligent words and some highly intelligent conversations and come with a good vocabulary if I needed to. So don't, try to play me like that. But I don't have to do that. And I never feel obligated to have to do it to anyone. But anyways, yeah, I just recommend people, let's read and research and read. That way, like, say, you're not just regurgitating stuff other people said. Because I feel like, say, people like to recite, like, statistics. And people like to recite just things that you hear everyone say. And that just is what a lot of things, like, I hear people say, like, man, if Tupac and Biggie was still alive, that blah, 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 da. It's like, do you really believe that? Or are you just saying that because you want to stay in the circle of friends that you're with? You don't want to be ostracized. You don't want people judging you because you think otherwise. I am about to go on a little tangent, but I have my own different things with Tupac and Biggie. I'm not on that Tupac and Biggie bandwagon. I did like them both, but I was never a fan of either. And that's, a lot of people ain't strong enough to admit that, but I wasn't a fan of Tupac or Biggie. They weren't the only rappers during their times. However, between the two, I respected both of them, but because I'm a poet, so like I connected more with Tupac being an artist, all around artist such as myself, and a poet. So yeah, I felt more, I related more with him and whatever I just said a second ago. But yeah, I connected more with him versus Biggie. But who was better? To me, they were the same. I mean, they weren't, but like, who was better? Like, they were on the same platform as me. Like I said, again, I wasn't neither a fan of either. I liked both of them. They weren't the only rappers then. There was other dope lyricists. To me, there was other lyricists who was better lyrically than both Tupac and Biggie. They both just had a different kind of charisma. But anyways, yeah, let's just stop repeating stuff that other people say. Like I say, people like, oh, Tupac or Biggie. I hear people say that all the time. I hear different generations like, oh, I like old school. Oh, I like reggae, Bob Marley. Oh, I like old school Temptation. Shut up. Like, again, you're just saying stuff that other people say. You don't have to do that. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you don't understand it, say that you don't understand it. That way you can be educated on the matter, right? Ain't nothing wrong with that. If you don't know, don't be ignorant. Ignorant meaning ignore, right? That's like the root word, and to ignore something. And if you ignore it, if you're ignorant, that means you are choosing not to, basically choosing not to understand it, right? It's like the knowledge, the information is there, and you're choosing not to accept the fact, right? So, to me, ignorance isn't that you just don't know. It's like you're choosing not to know. But yeah, so again, like I said, there's been a couple books that people told me to read, but I just can't, because I already understand whatever the concept is of that. So it's no point of me reading. It'd be kind of wasting my time, because I can still, and that's the thing, I can still converse with you about the book that you read that I've never read before, and we can still be within the same conversation on the same level with it. And I haven't read as deep as that you did into it. No, I can't, recite or regurgitate stuff that you're going to say specifically from the book, but I can still, get with you on a conversation. So do I have to read the book? No. Maybe if I read the whole thing, maybe I would have learned another little small thing, maybe, but it's not what I'm about to do. Another thing I like to challenge people with, since we're talking about words and learning and educating, it is kind of funny, but silent letters. I've been saying that forever. Silent letters. I'm not even going to harp on this for too long, but I just want to, just throw a little monkey wrench in the situation. If you want to really get with somebody and question their intelligence, say something like listen, right? Use the word listen. And they're going to look at you like you're stupid. You're like, what are you saying? I'm saying listen. Or intentionally spell the word listen wrong on a paper. Or let's just start spelling words. I say, see it, say it, spell it. And I said words are nothing but symbols of communication. If you say a word and you knew what I meant, then let's roll with it. So I feel like going forward, we as a people, we should spell words the way that they are pronounced. Because why not? It only makes sense. And somebody can't degrade your intelligence because they choose to recite a word based off how someone told you to say it when it doesn't even spell the way. You know what I'm saying? You guys get it. But yeah, I said just start writing words wrong. And if you read it and I can read it correctly, I mean, like, that's the whole point as far as I'm concerned. Granted, kids, you're going to fail school if you do that. But as adults, you might not get a job if you do that too. But if enough of us challenge the language, I think we can make a difference, y'all. So let's all take that silent T out. I mean, that T's in there by itself. No one's even recognizing that T. So why would we need to keep it in there? You feel me? I mean, because to me, that's unfair to the T. The T could be in another word doing better off than being sitting in there and listen. I'm just saying. I mean, because that S and that E ain't helping the T. The T just sitting in there silent. The T just got to sit there quiet all day while all this action goes around him, but the T just got to sit there all quiet. I mean, I don't think that's fair. I think we should let that T exit. Or maybe substitute the T with the S, twin. We got 2 S's in there. Let that T be on vacation. I mean, people get the T all the time, so T got his power, but don't let the T be degraded and listen. I'm just saying. Anyways, but yeah, let's do that challenge, y'all. Like I said, let's make up some words. See it, say it, spell it. Let's make up some words, get a description, a definition with it, say it with conviction, and let's start challenging the way we speak, right? So I think that can actually raise your intelligence when you come with it and challenge people that claim to be way smarter than you, but still going to say listen, and then ask them to explain a silent letter with a clear description. I know some people gave me something like, well, because the Latin base and something, blah, blah, blah. It made no sense to me. I'm not going to research it, so I might be just completely wrong with it. Doesn't matter. But yeah, have somebody give you a clear definition on silent letters and have them make sense. Because that to me reminded me of when I was in school, or we were doing algebra and they came up with invisible numbers. Anybody familiar with that? Invisible numbers. I promise you, when my teacher said that, my mind explode emoji happened. Like I failed all the different things that had anything to do with imaginary numbers, or on the test, if the answer was an imaginary number or had something to do with it, I skipped it or I didn't do it because that made no sense to me. And you can no one can make that clear to me. I'm sorry. You said imaginary numbers, and I thought like math was like one of the most like absolute kind of concrete things. 2 + 2 = 4. You can't tell me 2 + 3 equals it could be an imaginary. No, what? It's 5. It could be 5, but like nah, like. So that's kind of what imaginary numbers meant in my head. Now there was a reason, there's a quote unquote logic behind how the imagine. Anyways, I ain't talking about math. I'm talking about silent letters. But yeah, to me those are both on that same plane there, where it doesn't make any sense. But again, like I said, let's start questioning those kind of things. Because I said part of ConverStayShuns, I want people to be able to educate and stimulate their minds. I do want to bridge the gaps between different demographics and different groups of people, but this could be a good way to do that. This could be a good way to bring people closer together so everybody can, challenge each other. There's nothing wrong with challenging somebody. You don't have to come at it with a negative way, but just challenge people. I think that helps everybody grow. If you think about it, like if in sports, if everybody had the same skill level, either the game is going to be really boring or people are going to be scoring back and forth every time. And, it's going to be endless. Like, you need to be able to challenge somebody. So another challenge, names, right? And not just any names. Let's think about Bill. Bill is short for what? William. Explain that to me. Don't give me some weird Latin base because the Greeks came through. Somebody make that make sense to me. And why do we still visually we see WILLIAM, and then to shorten that it's Bill. So we throw in a letter, we replace the W with a B. The letter B is in Bravo. How does that make sense? But at the same time, somebody whose name's Will can be short for Willard, Willie, William again. But you can call your homie William Will. And you can call your homie William Bill. So is it okay if I call my homie Will Bill or my homie Bill Will? Like, are those interchangeable? Is Will and Bill the same name? Is it? Because Bill can also be short for Billy or Billiard. I never heard that as a name, but still. Hey, it could be short for Billiard or Billy, billionaire. I'm just saying, let's make that make sense. If we can't, let's get rid of it. Let's not keep doing that, y'all. I mean, we're trying to be a smart people. If we're so smart, we would just all don't worry about being judged and be smart about that. And say that Bill can't be short for William. It doesn't make sense. But if that's the case, if we're going to go with that, well, my name's Devin. So for short, call me Sam. That's what we're saying, guys. My name is Devin. For short, you're going to call me Sam. That's how that's going to work. How? Because, all right. And then, of course, there's Richard. And short for that is Dick. How does that work? Again, I don't know. But yet, we're so smart. We say that we're the smartest being on this planet, right? We're the intelligent beings while animals are beneath us. But yet, we come up with dumb stuff like Dick is short for Richard. How does that work? Now, Bill and William still doesn't make sense, but Bill, Will, they at least rhyme. But Dick and Richard, that doesn't go. But I mean, people probably listening to this thinking like, oh, I'm crazy for saying that. But think about that. Are you okay with that being the logic? Let's try to think logically about that. So there is a D in Richard. There is an I in Richard. There is a C in Richard. There is a K in Rich. No, there isn't. There is an H, and if you put a line on the H, it could be a K. Or if you I know what it is. If you take part of the line that's in the R and put it on the H, then there would be kind of like two Ks in Richard, which kind of could be, you mix up the words a little bit, and then, you got Dick for short. So with that said, I don't understand why when I call my friend Rick a dick, why he gets mad. Just kidding. But no, for real, y'all, I think we should really start trying to challenge people. Let's challenge just the way people think. That's the only way we could really grow. Like, for instance, I mentioned statistics. I've been trying to learn Spanish, and I downloaded an app. I'm not going to say the app because they're not paying me. But I downloaded this app, and I went to sleep, with the app playing in my ears, hearing the, transition between Spanish and English. They'll say one word in Spanish, and they'll repeat it in English, and they'll go through like a lot of different words and kind of cycle through them or whatever. And that's helped me recently when I was doing that, and it's helped me in the past. I used to do it a lot more in the past. And I was speaking to somebody about how I'm learning Spanish. We're trying to get back into it, and I told them, hey, I used to do this back then. And they told me that it's been proven that doesn't work. So, like, you can't retain knowledge or a language by that particular method. Is what somebody told me, that it didn't work. So again, I hit them with, show me that proof. Who are the subjects? Show me those studies. Were the people who did this test, were they scientists? Or were they like neurologist scientists? Or were they just regular scientists? Were they chemists? were the subjects, skeptical about it, or were they, going into it with an open mind? Do the people who the subjects either have a hard time concentrating? Do they maybe have a neurological issue? Again, like I said, do the people have a learning disorder, learning issue? Like, those are the things that I want to know, and I'm asking them. They're like, well, I don't know. Well, okay, but you just told me that it's been proven, but you don't know how it's been proven. So all you did again was regurgitate what somebody else said. And the fact of the matter is, it worked for me. No, I couldn't recall every word that I heard while I was sleeping. But that's just like I said, you can walk around, your eyes perceive everything, but you can't always recall every single thing. And it's kind of getting off subject, but not really. But when you're sleeping, you can't recall every dream and every thought that you had while you were sleeping. And a dream is basically thoughts, are your thoughts. So like if sometimes you daydream, right? Your eyes aren't closed, your eyes are open, you're imagining things, right? But your mind is frequently always thinking, and rapidly things and thoughts are always coming to your head. They're coming in and out of your mind. It's frequent, right? So basically while you're asleep, your mind is still doing the same thing. Yeah, it might relax, a little bit. Your mind relaxes to kind of relax your body, but your mind is constantly still thinking. It has to. If your mind stops thinking, your body actually technically shuts down. Your mind has to consciously think and send these synapses and these pulses to your body for it to do this, and that, or whatever. But your mind is constantly always still processing information and thoughts. So just imagine, again, like I said, you're walking outside, your eyes see a lot of stuff, but you can't recall every single thing that happened, right? Even within a minute, and if you glance around the room pretty fast, you may not recall every single thing that you just saw within that short amount of time. And I mean everything to the T, right? I mean, it's almost humanly impossible. Even when people with a photographic memory may not necessarily be able to recall everything to the T, because sometimes you're not even sure what you were wanting to focus on, right? And some people who do have that photographic memory, sometimes it's harder for them to recall certain things because they're having to try to replay that in their head on top of other thoughts coming into their head and, being calculated and computed into their head. So I'm saying all that to say, basically when I was hearing the audio, things were being retained in my head, right? But it wasn't until I got around people who spoke Spanish and they were triggering thoughts, right? So my mind was retaining it, but I couldn't just recall, a random word, because it's almost like my mind didn't know why to recite or repeat a certain word that might have, that, like I said, that my mind retained, but I just couldn't recall. So I find myself sometimes I'm understanding, when I hear people speak in Spanish, sometimes I kind of understand bits and pieces of words, but at the same time, I couldn't respond back to them. I was just able to pick up on certain words. And at first, excuse me, I used to be like, what? Is it because I listen to Spanish music and all that stuff? And then I thought about it, like some of those practices that I did actually helped me retain certain words, but again, I just couldn't recall them at the right situations because it's almost like I didn't know that I knew them, right? But then when I heard somebody else say it, then it like sparked something in my brain, like, oh, okay, that means this. I kind of remember that. But then it's like they may say a bunch of other words where I might have, individually, if I could, they would slow down. Maybe I could have picked apart each word. I'm like, oh, okay, this, and that. But, again, because they're speaking fast and it's like, it's trying to trigger in my brain, but, brain ain't recalling all that stuff because there's so much stuff to have to try to sit through it anyway. But yeah, you guys got it, I'm assuming. But basically that's my point. So I'm saying that particular method did work for me. So while somebody's saying certain studies and statistics aren't real, or, expert says this, okay, well, this worked for me. So, now what? You know what I mean? But again, it just goes back to what I was saying. Let's start again, reading and researching. Let's start fact checking stuff. Let's start challenging people. Like, let's not be afraid to challenge people. Again, if somebody seems intimidating with their vocal laboratories, into their atmosphere and challenge that. Even if you are, like, here's the best way to debate, right? If you have a little bit of knowledge about something, right, but you might want to gain more, but you got somebody who's real arrogant with it, challenge them, because you can learn something from it. You might quote unquote lose the debate, but you get to get some kind of knowledge. And sometimes in situations like that, information can retain in your brain because you have something to relate it to. It's unfortunately, like how PTSD works, there's certain things that I guess send off, I'm about to say some stuff that I wasn't really sure of, like endorphins and stuff, but there's certain things like that excites your brain, where, things that excite your brain, and excite not meaning a positive or negative, but things that spark or excite your brain typically retain in your knowledge, right? So, then that's when triggers happen, where they cause you to, kind of re-see those things. And that's kind of what I was saying with the learning the language and whatnot. But yeah, like, challenge those people, because you might find yourself in a new level. Because I think some people who want to talk over people's head and try to, be dominant, they have superiority issues. They also are real defensive, and sometimes put up defense mechanisms and try to belittle you so they don't get caught up in the knowledge that they don't know. And that's why I like to debate with people. My wife always try to call me out on it, saying how sometimes, she'll call me out at the fact that I do that. 'Cause I do that intentionally and strategically sometimes, because I feel like some people need to be challenged because they don't get challenged. Because they get away with just pretty much saying whatever they want the way they want to say it, and thinking that what they're saying is absolute. But it's like, no, there is another side of that. And that's kind of what the point of conversations is, to have these conversations so people can see both sides. Basically that. But again, like I said, y'all, like, if you are one of those people who you do know that you're smart and are wise, be humble with it. Educate somebody without having to try to belittle them, because that's not how people can grow. And again, for those people, just get ready to be challenged. And even if you feel like you are like a high intellect and you think that you are above a lot of people on your mental capacity, go challenge yourself. Maybe challenge yourself to go on to quote unquote a lower level to see how you can interact with people, maybe, right? Like, so just challenge yourself, because again, like, that's the best way we can all grow, stimulating each other's minds without having to crush somebody's dreams. But so if y'all ain't learned nothing else from this, please, let's do this. Let's do this challenge. And thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for tuning in to ConverStayShuns. Again, every time I do an episode, it helps me grow. So let's do this, y'all. Again, let's make up some words. Make up some words so you can see it, say it, and spell it. And then roll and run with those words. Say it with conviction. Come up with a definition, and let's roll with them words. And you say those words, and let's talk over other people's heads for a little bit, right? Just to have some fun, and then you'll tell them that you just made the word up or whatever. But let's roll with those words. And if you do get in a debate where somebody talking over your head, you throw in your made up words, but just have them definitions with it, right? Let's just do it. That's number one. 2, again, let's read and research. Also, let's listen. Because the best listeners, you can't listen and talk at the same time, right? In the same moment. But some of the best learners are the best listeners. Some of the best talkers. Some people sometimes are too busy talking where they don't listen. Anyways, but yeah, let's read and research more. Read and research more, and then research and read. Let's keep them going back and forth, but let them be interchangeable. But read and research. Don't just take anything at face value. Let's read into it. Again, you don't have to do no whole like book report or thesis or research paper on it, but just if you hear something that seems like it could be on an intellect kind of platform, especially like I said with statistics or where experts say, just go read up on it just a little bit at least, just to maybe see if there's a different perspective with it, if there's something more to what it is than what they're saying. Because again, people, especially like I said, with people writing books, a lot of times people are writing off their own experiences. So your experience may not be the same as mine. You can walk down the same path that I did, but your journey is still not going to be the same as mine. Your experiences are going to be the same as mine because we're two different people. So you can't necessarily read into somebody else's experience and expect that you're going to get the same results. So that's why we need to read and research, because some people will say that you need to be on so-and-so's diet because so-and-so said this and how this is bad for you or this and that or whatever. Some of that might be fact, but the thing is, they may not work for your body, right? That's why they have different diet plans and stuff out there. Don't just read into a diet that says, this particular thing is bad for you. Because the thing is, at the same time, unless you're going to be all the way healthy with certain things, some people be super healthy, but then they still drink and smoke, whether it be herbs or whatever you smoking. But still, some people, like, think about it. Alcohol, ain't the greatest. And too much of anything is bad. So, again, my point to that was basically you got to choose and do what's right for your own experience. Just don't read into somebody else's stuff and follow it because of their status or the position that they're in. Like I said, read into that, because again, people are only writing and reciting and sometimes regurgitating things based off of their own experiences and their own knowledge. Even with me saying this now, I don't want you even taking what I'm saying for face value. As a matter of fact, I don't want you to believe anything I say. I want you to go research what I'm saying. Take your own journey with what I'm saying. Maybe what I'm saying doesn't make any sense. Maybe that was the whole point of this episode. Maybe I just made up a whole bunch of random stuff just to see if I can even challenge you all. So yeah, just don't take anybody stuff at face value. Like I said, read and research, and let's challenge people. So again, 1, just make up some words with conviction and roll with it. 2, let's read and research more. And 3, let's challenge people. Challenge yourself, challenge others. I know that can kind of go with 1 and 2, but let's not be afraid just to challenge some people. Ask questions. If you don't know about something, ask questions. Somebody may think you're stupid for asking a question, but hell, you learn something new. You're stupid if you're not stupid, but my point, you're stupid if you sat there and didn't know and didn't ask the question. So ask the question, let people think that you're stupid. Because as far as you know, they probably thought you were stupid anyway. So F them, and who cares about their perception anyways. But yeah, ask questions, challenge people. Don't be afraid to challenge the person who wants to talk loud, or the person who wants to speak fast, or the person who has a big vocabulary. Challenge people. And I challenge those people who do find themselves on a higher level to see how you can, regurgitate your knowledge and be able to communicate, better with people who might not be on the same intellect level as you. Educate those people in the means that they can understand it. And people's like, well, I don't want to dumb it down. There's a difference between dumbing something down and communicating with somebody in ways that they will understand it. There is a huge difference with that. Just think about that. But if you're an intellect, you already know that. I didn't have to say it. And I always like to say this because I call myself an intellect, and someone called me arrogant a long time ago for saying that. So for those who think I'm arrogant, I'm sorry. But us intellects don't really have to communicate to you people that think I'm arrogant, because we're on such a higher plane. Hope I offended you. You'll be okay. And if you think I'm arrogant, challenge me. Step up to the plate. Let's do it. But anyways, thank y'all for tuning in to ConverStayShuns. Please follow us on everything that we're on. If you're listening to this podcast, you can see the information, the way to follow us in the bio. But again, thank y'all for tuning in to ConverStayShuns. Next week, I'm trying to get another educator on here so we can have these deeper into like I said, into the education system and educating people, and just how the education system has changed, and how it the connection to the pipeline. If you heard that before, it's something else to research, but how basically the educational system and the prison system are almost interchangeable, and how one kind of feeds into the other. Some people say that's what's the word? People say it's a conspiracy theory, but it's a lot closer to that than what we hope for. But again, that's ideally that's going to be next week's episode. Basically, talking about, like I said, that pipeline, and just trying to get some people who are in or been, like I said, in the educational industry, is what I like to call it. Because, anyways, but yeah. So please tune into next week. Thank y'all for tuning into today. Again, my name is Devin Boyd, aka Lyrical Instrumentalist. Thank y'all for tuning in the podcast to ConverStayShuns. And again, let's go ahead and try to do those challenges. Peace.